I think with this layoff, obviously there's the anticipation of the games, and everything's been talked to death about who's on the hot seat and who's got the pressure and the X factors, and yet this time of year you can feel the rest of the league starting to kind of bubble over, right? Like there's all these every 5 minutes I see a new tweet. This team's going to spend the most money on Marner, or look for Chicago or Carolina, or don't forget about Utah. Anaheim's going to be in there. By the end of it, there's going to be 20 teams that.
But that's what Mitch wants, doesn't
he? Of course, that's what he wants. Yes, right? Of course. If he wants the most money, what he wants is a bidding war, right? But he's also has to have a place in mind where he wants to go, and that's the ultimate answer that you really need. Where do you want to play?
He wants to go hide in Utah on not a very good team for the next 8 years of his life?
I would hope not. Because if that happens, then that, I think, will justify the Maple Leafs decision, and it justify the opinion a lot of Leaf fans have that he just, he couldn't step up in the biggest moments. If you go to Anaheim, you go to Utah, that's as far from the bright stage of Toronto, and as far from the playoffs as you can get.
I guarantee it wouldn't take long for him to miss it. He's experienced some garbage things with just his being at his house and people being offside completely, away from just being complete idiots, right? Yeah. Nobody ever deserves that, and nobody would ever want to stick around for that. But as far as being a Toronto Maple Leaf and walking around downtown and going into that building on a fall night, on a winter night, I'm telling you, it means a lot more, and it's a lot different. I played in both. I played where you can walk around and not one person says anything. And I've also played here. There will be a point where being Mitch Marner for the Toronto Maple Leafs would be a pretty awesome thing. And it was. But to deal with the other nonsense that he has, I totally understand it if he'd want to leave.
I think it is. I think there's the best of both worlds. Oh, you're right. Like he's lived it, and he grew up here, and, he played down the road in London. But he's never seen the other side of the fence. He might go to L.A. and love it and go, you know what, like, I can play hockey and go to the rink in my shorts and not worry about, because there's other stars in L.A. and you can have a life and live by the beach. And, the grass could be greener on the other side and a very good team, all that type of stuff. I think about it like if he doesn't, you want to go out west instead of having to play Toronto a bunch of times, all that type of stuff. There's a lot of different factors. He's got a young family, like a young family, just had a baby. Those, does his wife want to be close to her family? I'm assuming she's an Ontario girl. I don't know anything about their lives.
I believe so, yeah.
I'm sure her family's, there's a lot of different factors that go into this for Mitch Marner and his camp. But that being said, like, I've talked to guys who have left Toronto and said, you know what, I don't mind being in a market where the light isn't shined as bright. Mm-hmm. And other guys are like, yeah, I do miss it because it was great and we had a good team and all that type of stuff. So it depends on where he's at and where his head's at. But I don't think he's just going to go, I'm going to chase $14 million on the most obscure team. He's going to have a huge market for him. And I think he's going to choose where he believes he can try and win and contribute, but also have a quality of life.
Well, it's interesting. FanDuel's odds, plus 450, the shortest odds are him returning to the Leafs. And again, it's just a book. It doesn't have to mean anything, but I don't know. Maybe FanDuel knows something we don't. Here's Chris Johnston, our TSN Hockey Insider. How would you respond to that, CJ? The plus 450, Mitch re-signing with the Maple Leafs, shorter odds than anywhere else in the league.
I guess probably, look, I don't know anything about odds making, but I would assume some of the issue with that is just it's hard to identify just one team if you were to leave. If you gave me the field or the Leafs, I would be taking the field in terms of, I do think it's more likely than not that he's signing with one of the other 31 teams. But, I can't sit here and tell you right now, well, it's Team X or Team Y. I think that still has to take shape, and obviously, for Mitch and his family, it's obviously a huge life decision for them. And, as Noodles was mentioning there before I came on, I think he's going to have a lot of different opportunities put in front of him. He's going to have a lot of money put in front of him, and ultimately he's going to want to go somewhere that he believes he has a chance to win a Stanley Cup as well.
Well, that's it. Like, we're looking at the odds there, and there's a real combination of quality teams like Toronto, like Vegas, Carolina that make the conference final seemingly every year, and then Chicago's in there, and Utah and Anaheim, and it's like, well, those teams aren't close. Like, Chicago is arguably the worst team in the league. It's a big market.
Probably will
though.
be next year too.
Probably will be. Yeah, and I guess that's the question, CJ. Like, how does he marry the two? Money with winning. Like, how do you, because there's not that many teams that can do that, right? Like, that have the amount of cap space, that have the appetite for a guy like Marner, but that are one of the 7 or 8 best teams in the league. Like, is I don't know, is it possible a team comes out of nowhere, moves heaven and earth to try to bring them in, and maybe we're not talking about them as suitors right now?
Well, I think the way you do it, ultimately you probably have to prioritize one a little bit higher than the other. Any marquee free agent in Marner's situation is going to get a chance to be greedy in a sense that I think he can demand that it's a good team in an attractive city on a contract that will make them right up there among the league's highest paid players. I do think he can ask for that, but at some point in time he's going to have to decide which is maybe a little bit more important of all those factors. And let's face it, if you're joining a team in one of the tax-free states, if it was a team like the Panthers or Vegas, or you go down the list, those teams just don't pay the same amount for their players. It's been proven over a number of contracts and over a number of years here that I think you're not getting the absolute top dollar in terms of the number that gets recorded on the cap sites if you're going to one of those teams. And if you're going to a team that has a chance that's loaded with other frontline players, that team's going to want you to take a little bit of a haircut just to fit you in. The cap is a reality, even in a rising cap environment. That being said, there's other places if Mitch does decide to maybe go to a team that hasn't had the recent run of success, but he sees them positioned over the life of his contract to become a contender. I think in those sorts of scenarios, there's almost a premium in choosing to go to those kind of teams, and he could probably get a little bit more. And I don't know exactly what, when it comes time to make his decision where his mind is going to land on all these issues. But I'll tell you, he's going to have some good problems to have here in the next few weeks if he sees this through and hits free agency, because I think he's going to have a lot to consider come July 1.